etc., etc. So right now, as we start this college planning process, my role is really geared towards offering any sort of knowledge, resources, expertise when it comes to a particular career interest or a major interest or a question about a university. So definitely take advantage of using me as a resource here, and I'm happy to partner with each of you. Okay, so up here I have a resource that I went through with the entire senior class this week. So this past week I found myself in every single English classroom where I was able to talk through the application process, a little bit about Maya Learning, which I'll talk more about this evening, and starting your applications. So this resource is something that I've built for the entire Carmel community. It's our college and career counseling Google site. So if you have your phone on you, feel free to swipe up on the QR code. I'm going to talk through a couple resources on this site this evening. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to bookmark it and check back at it at a later date. Okay, so one of the resources that has been put together for our class of 2024 is an entire section dedicated to supporting you on your college applications. This evening, we're going to focus a lot on planning for four-year college. I'll briefly mention and talk about two-year colleges towards the end of this presentation, but for the most part, we're going to be talking about university planning at the four-year level. So this checklist is designed to help our students complete their applications for those four-year institutions. This checklist that is posted on the website is your one-stop shop for everything that you need with seeking any Carmel-related documents or any questions that you may have with completing those applications. So I told the senior class this week, when in doubt, check the checklist, and everything that you could need and more is posted there. Okay, so this is just an overview of what we're going to talk a little bit about this evening. As you can see, we have quite an agenda, so I'm going to start to work through it now. Okay, so Maya Learning. This was something that I brought up at our junior night last year. It's our college and career readiness platform, and it's critical for researching different colleges, different majors, and different universities. As a senior, you're going to utilize Maya Learning as part of your application process. One of the things that I explained to the senior class this week was that in our counseling department, we like to think of Maya Learning as our electronic post office in a way. So anytime you need a document from Carmel, which we'll talk more about tonight, so like a transcript, a recommendation letter, a copy of our school profile, we, the counselors, will transport that to the universities that you're planning to apply through Maya Learning. So it's really important and really critical that you know how to log into your account and that you know how to utilize it. So before we jump into all of the application components, I always think it's a good idea to talk about refining your college list. Here at Carmel, we like to categorize applying to schools in three different categories. We like to think of schools as safety, target, and reach. So one thing that I talked about last year at our junior night was that it's a healthy idea to have a college list made up of all schools that fall into one of these three categories. So a little bit about them. A safety school would be something that you feel pretty confident that you're going to be admitted in, meaning perhaps you have the GPA or the test score, or you fall right into that area where you see a lot of students admitted in Maya Learning on a scattergram. It's a good idea to have about 2 to 3 schools on your list that you feel pretty confident in. The next section is about target schools. So these are schools that you're on the bubble with, meaning maybe I'll find myself being admitted there, maybe I won't, I'm not exactly sure. So you're right on the bubble for being admitted there. And we like to see quite a few schools on your list as a target as well. Reach schools means that you are wishful for being admitted. So we like to encourage our students to reach for the stars, but also do that being aware of what's going on. Meaning, hey, let's not make your entire list a reach list. Let's maybe keep that to 1 to 2 schools. Ultimately, this list that you're applying to, you need to be happy at these schools. This is a place that you're going to call home for the next 4 years. And while it could be something that you're thinking, hey, at 17, 18 years old, I really think I could be excited and be happy to go to this place, it's important that you evaluate all different aspects of what a college has to offer. It needs to be a good academic fit. It needs to be a good financial fit. And socially, you have to be happy there. And that all comes down to you doing research as a student and as a family with finding that right fit for you. Okay, so typically we see the average Carmel student apply to about 5 to 8 schools. Now, everybody's list may look different. We may see students who are applying to more than 8 schools. We may see students who are applying to less than 5 schools. This is just an average statistic of what we see. If you have questions about your list individually, you can work with your school counselor or you can work directly with me, and I'm happy to help out with that. Okay, so right now, August 31st, this is what I like to call application season. Most college applications opened up back on August 1st, and the rest of them are actually going to open tomorrow, September 1st. So you as a student, when you determine your list of schools that you're planning to apply to, you're going to need to make the decision as to which application plan you would like to apply to. So up here I have a screenshot of what's called non-restrictive application plans and restrictive application plans. The most popular are those non-restrictive application plans, and I'll talk through those now. Okay, so your non-restrictive application plans. You're going to often see an application that may have a deadline that says rolling admission, regular decision, early action, or priority. So what this means is that you are not legally bound to attend a university if you are admitted through one of these application plans. Most of our students will end up filing their application in one of these plans. So rolling admission. Basically the way that this works is that institutions review your application essentially on a rolling basis, meaning that you submit your application and any supporting documents that they may need, and over the next couple of days, throughout the next couple of weeks, you will receive an admission decision. So typically we will see colleges, some schools out there will pump out a decision to you within 48 hours if you've been admitted. Other schools will take 4 to 6 weeks to review your application when they're on a rolling admission timeline. The next option is something that's called regular decision. So typically, if you see a school that has a regular decision application filing period, it means that they offer 2 different times that you can apply. That regular decision time means that you are going to submit your application by a specific date, and you will receive a decision by a certain date. So for example, Boston University has a January 1st regular decision deadline. So when you apply by January 1st, you are going to receive your decision typically in mid to late March. That's the idea behind a regular decision deadline. another word that you're going to see, and I really encourage our seniors to listen to what I have to say here, but if you see a timeline that says early action or priority, I highly encourage you to apply to a school that offers that deadline. Now, I say that because early action and priority deadlines, they're essentially the same thing, just different words. So what that means is that they typically will offer a application deadline ahead of the regular decision deadline. So for example, you may see that a school has an early action deadline of November 1st and their regular decision deadline is January 1st. What's happening is, as a student, if you apply to that earlier deadline, you're reviewed in the first wave of applicants that they get, okay? Now, I encourage our students to apply sooner than later because, well, one, you're looked at in that first wave of applicants. So your chances of being admitted are at its greatest at that point because the most number of incoming freshman seats are available. It also sets you up to be looked at for the most amount of financial aid and the most amount of scholarship money. So because you are applying at the earlier deadline, the pool of funds is at its greatest. So it's just something to consider. I always tell our students, why not apply sooner than later? A lot of schools that offer an early action deadline typically will have either a November 1st or a November 15th or a December 1st deadline. If you see priority, that's typically the same thing, and they typically will have either a December 1st or December 15th deadline, and you're just part of their priority application pool. I always think it's a good idea to apply sooner than later, mostly because you could roll into Thanksgiving break or final exams or even winter break, and you might even have a couple application decisions by then, depending upon the school and the way that they review applications. So these are our most popular plans. This is where I typically see probably about 95% of our graduating class apply. Could I get a slide advancement, please? Thank you. Okay, so restrictive applications. I mean, I don't know who came up with the words to name these application plans, but there are two different ones. So there's early decision and there's restrictive early action. So they sound very similar to a lot of our non-restrictive application plans, and it often causes a lot of confusion. I'll start with the early decision. So early decision, this is a binding agreement. This means that if you apply to that school and you're admitted, you are 110% attending that university, no matter what your financial aid package looks like, no matter what your scholarship looks like, no matter if you weren't exactly sure you wanted to go there. It's a legally binding agreement, and you are entitled and you must attend that institution. It is very difficult to get out of that agreement. Now, basically, I only tell students, only apply to this school if you're completely confident if you are going to go there no matter what. So with this early decision agreement, you as a student and your parent or guardian and your school counselor, you're making a written agreement saying that you're going to attend there. You can only apply early decision to one school. So if you are admitted to a school, you must withdraw your applications from all the other schools that you're applying to at that point. Now, there are a couple different early decision application periods. There's something that's called ED1 and ED2. So basically, it's just different timelines for that school. So they may say, hey, our ED1 application deadline is November 1st, but our ED2 is not till January 15th. So it can be a confusing process. If you're considering early decision for any school, talk to your school counselor, talk to me, and I'm happy to read through all of the fine print with that. Now, restrictive early action. This is another plan that just has some restrictions to it. You're not necessarily legally bound to attend that institution if you apply to that REA application and if you're admitted, but basically it just has some strings attached to it. So you'll find that some of the schools, like Stanford, for example, they will say, hey, we offer an REA application period that you can apply to. However, if you choose to apply REA, we're not going to let you apply to any other private universities. So there's just some strings attached to it. It's really confusing. If you find yourself in this situation, I'm happy to talk through it with you. Okay, so what makes an application complete? So there are many parts that are going to complete your application, but for the most part, an application is going to actually be completed with the physical application that you fill out, any fees that you need to pay in order to apply. There's a student signature portion, which is just like an electronic signature. And then there might be what's called like a parent-guardian signature, should you choose to apply to that early decision legally binding agreement. So with the application, you're going to find that you're going to fill out this application, and it's going to ask you a whole series of questions about you, perhaps even your parents, and it's going to ask for some biographical and high school information and data. Typically in the application, there is an essay or a personal statement portion to it. Now, I know all of our English classes right now are working on a personal essay for college, a memoir. This is a great example for all of you to use this time as a draft for your college essay. And it might be something that you want to submit and you want to share with the universities to talk a little bit more about who you are. In the application section, there's also going to be an activities and honors section for you to fill out. The schools want to know who you are, what you've participated in, and what makes you you. So this is a great time for you to talk about all the awesome things you've done over the last 4 years. The application fee. It costs money to apply to college. There are a number of schools out there that have free applications, and there are a number of schools that will charge you somewhere between $50 to $75 an application. And believe me, it adds up really quick. So just be aware when you're making your list to keep that in mind as you're applying, that there are going to be some costs that you'll need to pay for. We offer financial fee waivers for our students who are here on scholarship or for families who may find themselves in a difficult hardship and may need help paying for college applications. So talk to your school counselor, talk to me, and I'm happy to help you out with that. Okay, there are a few additional application pieces as well that typically will go along in this process. So most likely, you are going to need to submit a copy of your transcript. Now, there are two ways to do this, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later this evening. But there's what's called an official transcript and something that's called an SRAR, a self-reported academic record. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. You may see that you need to have a secondary school report, an SSR, submitted. That's a document that your counselor will submit for you. It's not something that you need to do. The school may say, hey, we need a copy of your ACT, or we need a copy of your SAT. You can tell us your scores if you'd like, or you can choose to be test optional. So there are a couple different ways that you would have to submit that information, and that's either through an official score report or self-reporting again. There are some schools that will allow you, or they may even require, a recommendation letter. So these recommendation letters I'll talk more about later as well, but they typically come from either your teacher or your counselor here at Carmel. And then last but not least, some schools may say we would like to include an interview or an audition or a portfolio as part of our review process. There are not many schools out there that do that, but there are some that will have that part of their application review. So that's just something for you to keep in mind and part of your timeline to make sure that you're checking all those boxes. Okay, so when I went into the English classes this week, we talked a lot about this application that's called the Common App. So the Common App, it has over 1,000 colleges and universities on it across the world that students can apply to. It's called the Common App essentially for its name. So it's common because you simply fill out one application, and that same application, for the most part, is sent to the list of schools that you're hoping to apply to that will receive and accept this as part of their application requirements. Most of our students are going to find themselves using the Common App. I highly encourage it, mainly because it saves you time and energy from filling out so many different applications and keeping track of all of that information. The one thing to kind of keep in mind with the Common App, there are 7 essay prompts on it, and typically students will choose one prompt, and for the most part, that same essay is shared with all of the colleges that they're applying to. So it saves you a lot of time and energy by having to do one essay. There are some schools that may require a few more, but at least you have one done at that point. Another application, we did not talk about this in our English class, seniors in the room. There's an application called the Coalition application. As of today, there are about 150 colleges on it. Many of those schools overlap with the Common App. In fact, all of them do. There are no schools that are exclusively Coalition applications. We didn't talk about it in our training this week, mostly because I would encourage all of you to steer away from it if you can. It's a complex application to use. If you do find yourself using it, we will definitely support you and help you through it, but if I could just give my professional recommendation, I would encourage you not to use it. And then last but not least, students may find themselves, if they're not using the Coalition application or the Common App, they may find themselves applying to either the school-specific application or the school systems specific application. So for example, the University of California system has their entire own application system. They are not on the Common App. So you may find yourself using the University of California system at that point, using their application. Some schools will offer the option that they're on both the Common App and they have their own university-specific application that you can apply to directly on their website. So if you find yourself wanting to apply on the school's website instead, by all means go for it. We will help you with that process and we're very familiar with it. It does not increase your chances whichever application you use. So one does not increase your chances over the other. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about this essay and personal statement that you're going to find in your application. So what's the purpose of having the essay? It's to provide information that is not found in the application. It's not a time for the student to talk about, hey, this class was really difficult to me. This is why I have a C on my report card or a D. It's not a time for students to talk about their struggle with standardized testing, or maybe if they're a really great standardized tester. It's a time to share something really unique and awesome about you, and tell the universities and the colleges why you're this great person that they should admit on their college campus. It's also a time to demonstrate to the colleges that you know how to write coherently, and you know grammar, and you know punctuation. So in a way, it is a test at the end of it. I like to always give a couple tips. So you'll find that many applications may say right away, hey, the essay is required, whereas you have to do it at that point. Many schools will leave it optional as well. So if you find yourself seeing that an essay question is optional, it's really not optional. I would encourage you to do it. It just shows that you're taking that extra step, that you're taking the extra initiative, that you are taking the time to show them, hey, admit me to your school because I can write a rock star essay. I always tell our students, answer the prompt. Typically you'll have a word count, and it's really easy to lose focus, and it's really easy to start talking about something that has nothing to do with you, but maybe another person. Stay focused, be clear and concise, and answer the prompt. Length. I think this is a good one. Quality over quantity. While there is a word count, and you want to be in the general range of that word count, quality is definitely greater than quantity. And then give yourself the gift of time. Don't wait until October 31st at 11 o'clock at night to start your essay. I promise you it won't end well. Give yourself time. Utilize Carmel as a resource here. We are happy to help you. We're happy to look over these essays. I know many of you are already working on them because it's been an English assignment, and many of you were in my summer workshop where this is what we primarily focused on. So a lot of you have that draft going, so just give yourself time. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this already. So the Common App essay, there are 7 prompts on it. Typically you choose one for the most part. This essay, do not write it geared towards a particular college or university if it's the Common App essay prompt. I say that because all of the schools are going to receive a copy of it, and it would be really awkward if you name a school in there and then another institution gets it. Another thing to keep in mind, when you're filling out applications, there are many schools out there that will require an additional 1 to 3 essays. So while you may think, okay, I'm working on this application, I have just 1 essay, once you physically start to work through that university's questions on the Common App, or even on their institution's application, you may find that they have their own questions that they're going to ask you. I can tell you right now that U of I, which is our flagship here, they have 2 to 3 essay prompts that you need to answer. So keep that in mind. Okay, so a couple minutes ago I told you that if you see an essay that says optional, it means that it's required. Yes, that is true, except for the COVID community disruption essay. That one is truly optional. You do not have to write about this unless you absolutely have something that disrupted your community, or perhaps you had a difficult time during COVID or during the pandemic that you would like to share. So this is something that you truly don't have to answer if you don't want to. If you need help with your essay, you can schedule an appointment with me. I am happy to look over essays and give you some feedback on that. Talk to your English teachers. Like I said, I know they all assign this as an assignment in their class. You can work with your school counselor. They love to read essays as well and would be happy to look over and give you some feedback. Consider having parents, friends, families read this over. And it's always good to designate someone as your content reader and someone who's going to proofread for you. So use your resources. We're all here to help. Okay, let's talk about transcripts, because I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Like I said, there are 2 different types of transcripts. So there are official transcripts and then self-reported transcripts. The official transcripts come from Carmel. What makes it official is that we, the Carmel faculty, the Carmel school counselors, will send your transcript directly to the college or university that you're applying to. Now, it does not touch your hands in any way, shape, or form. Colleges like to receive official transcripts mainly because they know the student and the family have not touched them in any way. So you'll find that many schools will require official transcripts. Now, we talked about this in our English class training. Students are well aware of the process and how requesting a transcript works. It's also posted on my Google site and on our checklist. But students, if they need an official transcript, they must request that with their counselor at least 2 weeks in advance of their application deadline. So students request this on their counselor's Google form. They have all been briefed on where to find the Google form. Now, basically what the student's going to say is, I'm applying to this school and I need an official transcript sent. And then the counselor will receive that request and will send it off to the colleges and universities. So, for many of you who are thinking, I'm applying by November 1st, you need to request your transcripts with your counselor on their Google form by October 15th. Keep that 2-week internal deadline in your minds. The counselors are processing a ton of documents during this time. It's like a revolving door in our student services office. They need time to do this. The next way is through self-reporting. So you're going to find that a lot of schools will have you self-report your grades. And what that means is that essentially you are going to type your grades in, your credits, your GPA, your courses, exactly the way that it's projected on your transcript, okay? A lot of schools are moving in this direction. I'll talk more about that on the next slide. The other part that gets bundled with transcripts are the secondary school report and the school profile. This doesn't affect any of you. We send it in the counseling office, something you don't need to worry about. The transcripts, if you need an official copy, will be released on Tuesday, September 5th. So on Tuesday after Labor Day. Now, we wait to send official transcripts until this date, mostly because right now counselors are just wrapping up everything that's going on with schedule changes, course requests, et cetera, They also are running credit checks on each and every one of you to make sure that you have enough credits to graduate, and they're double checking all those GPAs. And that process takes time. You're not behind in any way, shape, or form for having to wait until September 5th for your transcript. A lot of these neighboring high schools do the exact same thing, and the colleges know it. Okay, if you are a transfer student at Carmel, welcome. This means that you did not start at Carmel on day 1 of your freshman year. In that case, should you need an official transcript, you will need to reach out to the office at your previous high school and request your grades to be sent to whatever college or university you're applying to. We only send the Carmel grades and the Carmel transcripts from here. So it's important to give yourself that gift of time that we talked about and making sure that you're making those requests with your high school that you previously were at to ensure that they are going to send those documents in a timely manner. The other thing that's really important, and we talked about this in our Maya training, is that in order for documents like our transcripts and the school profile and the secondary report, blah, 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 in order for that to be sent to the colleges and universities, if you're using the Common App, is that you need to link your Common App and your Maya accounts. The two portals are different. They must be linked together. Seniors, we talked about this in our English training. You know that the steps are listed on that checklist. You know that it's on my Google site, and you know where to find me if you need help with that. Okay, so going back to this self-reported academic record. Like I said, this means that you're taking a copy of your transcript and you're putting everything in there exactly the way that it looks. It is so important that you are detail-oriented when putting in your transcript. The slightest misstep between a B- and a B+ will make a world of difference in your application review. So the colleges, they are evaluating, first off, how well you are at data entry, and second off, they want to see how truthful you're being. Because at the end of the day, should you choose to attend this university, and that's where you're going to be going in the fall, we're going to send an official copy of your transcript, and if it doesn't match, there's going to be some problems. So I would say a lot of these schools that you see up here, U of I, Iowa, the entire University of California system, they have moved in a direction of self-reporting. We will give you a copy of your unofficial transcript at your senior meeting. It will also be posted on the Maya Drive in Maya Learning as well, and I believe it's also posted in the Veracross portal for your reference. Okay, so recommendation letters. I told this to the seniors. This is a process that can get a little chaotic really quick. So I'll start by saying this. Rec letters are not required by every university. In fact, many of them don't require them. There are actually quite a few that will physically throw the rec letters into the trash can. They will not read them as part of their review process at all. So if a college requires a rec letter, they typically only need one. There are schools out there that will require more than one. University of Chicago is a great example of it. In that case, you may need 2 to 3. So I told all the seniors, and this is a message that we're delivering across the counseling department, if you need a rec letter, ask for a rec letter. If it's optional and you feel that it will add some value to your application review, then ask for 1. But don't ask for 5, don't ask for 10. Basically, these admission reps will review your application, sometimes for only about 3 minutes, and they're not gonna spend all this time reading these rec letters. So just follow the instructions. Who writes these rec letters? They are going to be your Carmel teachers and your Carmel school counselor, okay? I always tell the students, and I told them this during our training, my personal recommendation is consider a core teacher from junior year. I say that because your junior year teachers have most recently had you in their class. They know who you are as a person, they know what type of learner you are, and they can write best to who you are today. Now, if you're sitting here and you're panicked and you're thinking, I don't have a junior year teacher who I want to write for me, fine. That's just my recommendation. You can definitely consider a sophomore teacher or a freshman teacher or somebody that you've had an ongoing relationship with. I also think it's something worth considering is if you are planning to major in a certain field and there's a teacher here who specializes in that field. For example, maybe you're going into engineering and you want your engineering teacher to write you a letter of rec. That could be a great example of someone outside of a core subject to write you a rec letter. Now, oftentimes students will think, hey, I need to have my coach or my employer or my church leader write me a rec letter. And while that's great and all, most of the time the colleges want to see someone from your high school. They want to see someone from your learning experience, from your teacher, from your counselor. They may say that you can have one of these individuals send a rec letter, and that's totally fine. That will be that person's responsibility for getting that letter to the college and university. We only will submit rec letters from Carmel teachers and Carmel counselors. Okay, so there's a lengthy process to this. All of the seniors went through it during our training, but essentially, in a nutshell, students can see the process, parents can see the process on my counseling site on that checklist. There's also an entire letters of rec section designated, but students will need to ask a teacher at least 2 weeks in advance for a rec letter of their application deadline. They will need to complete what's called a brag sheet, which essentially the student will answer a lengthy set of questions talking all about their experiences that they had in this teacher's class, or maybe something they want their counselor to talk about. And then they will need to invite their recommender in Maya Learning. Ultimately, at the very end, they will fill out their counselor's Google form, and then the counselor will be able to submit all rec letters for the student. So again, students heard this message from me this week. It's also on my website with all that information. I highly encourage you, if you are considering or if you need a rec letter, to take a look at it. Okay, and this is just a little refresher. Again, we have that 2-week internal deadline for both official transcripts and rec letters. So most of you will apply by November 1st, and in that case, all of these requests need to be made by October 15th. I actually encourage you to do it sooner than October 15th. All right, so let's get into the good stuff now. So on your applications, you may find something that's called FERPA. FERPA means the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. In a nutshell, what this means, it's a federal law that governs the privacy of educational records that belong to our students. So your educational record belongs to you. It's your personal document, and it's your right to choose to disclose what you would like and what you would not like to share with the universities. So this educational record could be anything that includes grades, rec letters, school reports, 504s, IEPs, whatever you want to share, that's up to you. Now, on your applications, it's going to ask you a question if you would like to waive your FERPA rights or not. We highly recommend that you waive your FERPA rights, because then it gives us, as a high school, permission to submit these documents on your behalf. Oftentimes, if we don't have this permission, we may not be able to submit those documents, and then when the colleges see your application come across their desk and they see that you did not waive your rights, it sets off a red flag to them at that point. It shows that maybe there's something you don't want them to see. So waive your rights. If you have questions, talk to me about it. Okay, so a little bit about standardized testing, because I know that this is a hot topic and it's something that people are trying to figure out whether to include in their applications or not. So oftentimes on an application, you're either going to see that the school is test blind, test optional, or they're requiring test scores. If an institution is test blind, this means that test scores are not considered at all. They will not look at them even if you submit them. Right here in our backyard, NIU, Northern Illinois University, is a test blind institution. The entire University of California public school system, they are a test blind system. They will not look at your test scores. There are about 40 schools that are test blind out there. Most you'll often find are either test blind or they're not. If they are something, they typically are what's called test optional. Test optional means that you have the option to submit your test scores or not. So students make this choice, and it's truly a choice. It's a personal choice. It's a choice on what type of major that they're planning to study, and it's something that we can help you talk through. Just because you're applying test optional to one school doesn't mean that you have to apply test optional to all schools. So it's just important for you to know your school's policy, know what that college is requiring. That way you can answer and submit the documents as truthfully as possible. Okay, so a lot of you may be sitting here today thinking, I'm applying to a couple schools that are test optional. Do I submit my score? First off, ask yourself, is the school truly test optional? because there are quite a few that have moved on to require those test scores again. So the entire University of Florida public school system, they require test scores. Same with Georgia, same with Tennessee, same with MIT, as well as now Purdue. They are requiring test scores. If you're thinking, okay, I'm not applying to any of those schools, like my institution still might allow me to apply test optional, think about what program you are applying to at that school. Now, there are a ton of schools out there that have direct admit programs, meaning that you apply directly to the major, and on the first day of freshman year in college, you are starting courses in your actual major. So you're a direct admit to that college. I like to use U of I as an example. They are a direct admit institution, meaning that you apply directly to the Geese School of Business if you would like to study accounting. Should you be admitted, you are starting with accounting courses on day one. Now, if a program has a direct admit criteria, you may want to consider using a test score, or maybe not using a test score in that point. So most of the time, the colleges are pretty transparent about what their averages look like for students to be admitted to certain majors. U of I is a great example. They have that all posted on their website. But it would be to your benefit to do your research and see where that mid 50% of students are admitted within that major at that college. Kind of going off of that a little bit, a good rule of thumb is if you're applying to a directed major program and they have the test optional criteria, look at the mid 50%. So that means 50% of students are admitted in that range. 25% are admitted higher, 25% are admitted lower. It can kind of help you gauge where you fall to see if you should use your test score or not. If you're in the mid 50% or higher, send your score. If you're below, have a conversation with your counselor or myself, and we can help you with that. I would also encourage you, before you consider test optional, look at the scholarship opportunities. Although many schools that are test optional, they will say, hey, we're test optional for all of our scholarship opportunities. Some are moving back in a direction where they may say, hey, you can only be looked at for the presidential scholarship if you submit an ACT or an SAT score. So just evaluate everything before making this decision. That's all that I encourage you to do. All right, so let's say you choose to apply test optional and you're not sending your score, okay? If you don't send your test score, this means that there's going to be a greater emphasis on your high school curriculum and grades and your overall transcript. So you can expect them to just do a little bit deeper of a dive into your transcript, looking at your application, looking at the major that you're planning to apply to, really reviewing that essay, looking at the course rigor that you've taken, and any extracurricular or leadership opportunities. So this is called a holistic review, where they're just evaluating all of these components a little more in depth, mainly because you don't have a test score for them to evaluate you on. Okay, so let's say you need to submit or report your test score, okay? If you choose to submit a score for whatever reason, you're either going to need to order an official copy of your ACT or your SAT, or you're going to need to self-report that information on your application. So let's start with the self-reporting. Very similar to the self-reporting of your transcript. Don't say you got a 36 on the ACT if you really didn't get a 36 on the ACT. One day you're going to have to show them the official score report, and if you fabricated it in any way, it's not going to end well. So enter that data accurately. If you need an official score report, you will need to order this through My ACT or the College Board for the SAT. You as the student and the parent guardian You are responsible for ordering this test score. We at Carmel do not send your scores. They don't belong to us. We do not send them. They also cost a little bit of money, and they add up. So if you're planning to submit multiple score reports to schools, they cost anywhere between $14 and $18 a score report, and that will add up. So just keep that in mind. There are fee waivers available for those of you who may need them. Just talk to me, talk to your counselor. We're happy to help you. And then last but not least, a lot of applications won't be considered complete until they get your test score. It is not an automatic send from ACT or the College Board. Do not wait until 11 o'clock on October 31st to send those score reports. They will not be there in the morning on November 1st. Give yourself at least 2 weeks, at least. Okay, so this is just an overview of the responsibilities and just a recap of who does what in this process. So, the student, you're going to be the driver here for the most part. You're going to be deciding on that final list of colleges with your family. You're going to be setting up your applications and physically submitting them yourself. You're going to be linking your Common App and your Maya accounts if you're using them, so we can send those documents. You're going to be requesting the transcripts and the letters of rec, and you're going to be submitting any official test scores. Should you need to communicate with a college rep, I have their contact info. We'll talk more about that in a second. You as the student are doing that communicating, and I can't emphasize that enough. Parents, please take a back seat on this. The college reps don't want to talk to you. I mean that in the nicest way. They want to talk to the college-bound student. So if you need help with something and you're communicating directly with a college official, the student needs to do it. All right, so the counselors, our school counselors here, they are going to send your transcripts after they're requested. They're going to send any completed recommendation letters, the secondary school report, a copy of our school profile. All of that will be sent through Maya. That is their role in this process, as well as to support you on it. Okay, so just a little quick tidbit about these application fee and fee waivers. Many cost between $25 and $60 or $75 even, I've seen. I'll be honest, when I was applying at school, I was the oldest of 3 kids. My parents had no idea what we were doing, and we were spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on applications. So it adds up. Just be aware of it. Again, those official score reports, those cost money too. If you need help with any financial need, we're here to help you with that. Just talk to your counselor. Okay, so there are quite a few financial aid updates this year. For those of you who have had previous college students go through this, and if you may have filed the FAFSA, this timeline has changed for this year only. So, the FAFSA will open in December this year, not October 1st, for those of you who have filed it with a previous student. Could we advance, please? Okay, so the FAFSA, for those of you who are sitting here and are like, what are you talking about? The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This application typically opened October 1st, but this year's opening some date in December. We have no idea what it is yet. Essentially, they're trimming down the application. It used to be like 140 questions, and now they're cutting it in half or something. So it'll be a more succinct application, which will hopefully make this process entirely easier for everyone involved. Basically, what you do is with this application, you fill it out, you list all the schools that you're planning to apply to, and you're basically seeing if you're going to qualify for any federal or institutional aid at these institutions. So many schools will use this mainly not to cause any problems with like scholarship, that has nothing to do with it. This is mostly to see if you're eligible for any grant dollars or student loans or Parent Plus loans at that point. So we are going to have a financial aid night in late September. I have an awesome speaker lined up who's going to host a webinar for us. I've used him for the last 5 years now. He is well versed in financial aid, and he breaks it down in the easiest terms to understand. So he will be going over a lot of the updates on the FAFSA, as well as for those of you who may think, hey, I'm not totally sure I'll qualify for federal aid, but it might be worth just listening to and learning a little bit more about. So that webinar will be on September 26th. It will be on Zoom, and I will send you all a link in the next couple of weeks with that info. The other thing is the FAFSA. This document, as much as they're trimming it down, it asks for a lot of financial information. Typically, the student will have to report any taxable income that they have. Parents, guardians, you'll have to report that as well. It can get a little complicated. We partner with ISAC, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, and they send representatives to our school where they will sit down with you individually and confidentially aside, and they will talk with you about how to fill out the FAFSA. So I would encourage all of you, if you've never filled it out before, or perhaps, hey, this is going to be my second kid in school, I'm not really sure how to do it now that I have 2 in college, to grab one of those appointments when they become available. And I am working with ISAC on getting a couple dates in January for them to come to Carmel to meet with our families. Okay, so scholarships. This process is something that will come after you apply. So you need to do the applying first. Typically, when a student fills out an application for admission, they are reviewed for any institutional scholarships or aid at that point, meaning that, hey, they're going to review you to see if you'll be admitted to the school, and then they're going to see what kind of scholarship money we can give you. The most amount of scholarship dollars that you're going to see is going to come directly from the school. So it's great to apply to external organizations, external scholarships. I encourage all of you to do that, but you're going to see the big bulk majority of dollars coming from that college. So students, you should be researching about how to receive, how to be reviewed for these scholarships. Again, most of the time it's simply just filling out an application for admission, but there are additional scholarships that they may say, hey, we need you to fill out this application separately. So just do the research on the schools. Maya Learning, I'm going to have a list of scholarships in there. It's not totally updated yet for this academic year. In fact, I update it as I start to receive them in the mail and via email. Basically, it's local organizations, different charities, communities who want to give Carmel students dollars to go to school. So a lot of these scholarships are part of the local and regional area. So your chances of getting them are pretty high because you're not working against a national population at this point, just with students in this area. So check out Maya Learning. I'll be sending a lot of communication in the winter time about scholarship opportunities, so definitely take a look for it. I would also suggest looking at some scholarship databases like Sallie Mae, FastWeb, CapEx. These are national scholarship databases, so again, you're competing against students in the entire country at this point, but there are a lot of scholarships out there. I mean, sometimes you can get one for being like 6'5" for whatever reason. So there are some interesting ones, so check it out. Okay, so college rep visits. These are going to kick off in my office beginning next week. So next Tuesday, September 5th, we'll start the fall college rep season in the CCRC. I have over 100 slots available for college reps to sign up for a 40-minute period to visit Carmel. And what they do is a rep will come to school, they'll set up shop in my little office, and then they will meet with any students who pre-register for the visit to recruit them, essentially. It's an opportunity for them to talk a little bit more about their institution and why you should attend or apply there. It's a great opportunity for all of you who, first off, maybe you're not totally sure on your college list yet. That's fine. This is a great opportunity for you to hear more about a school to add to your list. It's also a great opportunity for those of you who have the school on your list, because that rep that comes here may or may not be the person who reviews your application. So it's some awesome FaceTime for you to talk with that individual and have them just to get to know you a little bit. So a couple things. We do require students to pre-register for this event 24 hours in advance of the visit. So if the visit is scheduled at 9:50 on Tuesday morning, students need to register in the Veracross portal by 9:50 on Monday morning. So check out the Veracross portal. You can see the schedule in there. CDN's broadcasting it every week. I have it in the newsletter. And just keep checking back. The reps are still building their fall college schedules. They're not done yet. A lot of schools are missing, so just continue to check back and see when that person's coming to visit. Okay, so we talked a lot about four-year colleges tonight. A quick tidbit on what's going on with two-year colleges. If you're sitting here and you're thinking, I'm not totally sure if a four-year school is right for me, absolutely okay. We are going to support you no matter what, even if you're sitting here thinking college might not be the right option for me. So, two-year community colleges, you can register, you can apply to a two-year community college literally days right before class starts, okay? I would encourage all of you to apply at least by March 1st of 2024, mostly because that will give you an opportunity to take your placement tests, submit your transcripts, get your placement scores, and then be able to choose your classes and build the schedule that you would like, okay? Now, two-year colleges, they're a great opportunity for our students who are not totally sure they are ready for a four-year school yet. It's a great opportunity to kind of ease in to the college setting. It's also a great opportunity to save money. College of Lake County is our district community college. You can certainly look at other community colleges as well, but typically if you live within Lake County, you get their in-district tuition rate, which is very affordable. If you look at other community colleges, maybe like Harper or College of DuPage, whatever it may be, you'll just pay the out-of-district rate, which tends to be a little bit more money. So this is a great opportunity to save money if you're worried about tuition. It's also a great opportunity to consider knocking out some of the general education requirements that you may need to complete towards your career. So while you can knock out those gen eds and not pay for them at a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 sticker price at that point. CLC, I'll talk a little bit about them. They have a wonderful transition program to any four-year institutions, all community colleges too. CLC in particular will help you if you say, my goal is to get to a four-year school. I want to do my first year or my first 2 years here, whatever it may be, and I want to finish my degree somewhere else. They will partner with you to ensure that the courses you take at their community college actually transfer to that university. That way you're not wasting time and money. We are looking into having a CLC field trip in the spring, so for those of you who may be considering going there, this will be a great opportunity for you to participate in that as well. And then I always host a little CLC webinar info night in the winter too. So a link with that information will be coming out in many months. Okay, so to wrap things up, senior year. This is not a time to let your grades slip. I can't emphasize that enough. Your grades matter. They will be extremely crucial in this process. Yes, if you apply right now, the last set of grades on your transcript would be your last semester of junior year. But I can tell you that once it comes time for us to submit that official transcript to the colleges, whichever one you're planning to attend, and they see a dip in your grades, you run the risk of having your offer of admission revoked. So don't let senioritis step in. Another thing to consider, and this happens very often, you may find yourself applying right now in the fall, and you may receive a decision from the college saying, we would like to defer your application. And what that means is they're not saying, no, you're not admitted, and they're not saying, yes, you are admitted. They're saying, we need further information from you, whether that's an additional test score or updated grades from first semester of senior year. This happens very often that students will be deferred, and if that's the case, we simply resend your transcript in January, February with your updated grades, and then the college will make the decision at that point. So it's really important to have a strong first semester of senior year. Here in red, you'll see that any course changes, dropped or added, must be communicated to the colleges after your transcripts and applications have been submitted. So let's say you apply next month, and let's say we get back from winter break in January and you decide you don't want to take a course anymore and you would like to drop it. You need to tell the colleges that you are planning or that you would like to drop this course before you do it, because they may have admitted you or they may have you in queue to be reviewed if they haven't released an admission decision to you, believing that you're going to take a certain course. So for example, if you want to drop the last semester of your math class, and let's say there's a college out there that admitted you believing you're going to have 4 full years of math, well, they may come back and say, hold on, we're going to revoke your admission if you drop this math course. Like, we admitted you on the conditional acceptance that you were taking 4 years of math. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about making any schedule changes. Okay, so next steps. Review the College and Career Counseling Google site. It has a wealth of information on it, and I promise it will be a great step-by-step guide for each and every one of you in this process. Make your transcript and recommendation letter requests at least 2 weeks prior to your application deadline. Sign up for those college rep visits on Veracross if you'd like to learn more about a particular school. Parents, this is mostly going to refer to all of you and to your student too, but mostly to parents. The FAFSA will begin to be open sometime in December. Again, not totally sure on that date yet, but I will for sure keep you posted when I know. And then attend College Financial Aid Night, which will be a virtual webinar if you'd like to learn more about paying for college. Okay, here are some upcoming dates. Kind of just highlights what we talked about. I'll draw some attention to the bottom too. So there are college fairs popping up all over this fall. These are just 2 of them. Many of the local public high schools around here will offer college fairs at a regional level. Sometimes they have closed doors that it's only for their communities. Other times they're open to the public. You are more than welcome to attend those if you're allowed to. The Choices Fair at Vernon Hills High School, this is open to everyone, but it's a fair that's designed for students with 504 or IEP plans. So if you're someone that thinks you might need a college that can offer some additional supports at that level, attend that college fair. And then the College of Lake County College Fair, they will have over 150 college reps represented at CLC on October 12th, where you can learn more about various institutions. Okay, so couple reminders. Again, colleges need to know about those schedule changes if you have any. Always check the college's website for their application requirements. They do vary. Your senior year matters. Don't let senioritis hit. Transcripts, we will begin sending the official transcripts on Tuesday for anyone that makes a request by then. Seniors, you must meet all graduation requirements. This not only has to do with our graduation requirements that we have at Carmel and the state of Illinois, but also your service hours are important and you must meet those. You'll start to receive a lot of communication from me over the next few months about reporting your scholarship dollars. We like to know how many schools, which schools, how much they offered you. We like to know all of that data. So save your scholarship letters because we're going to ask for it. And then the national deposit deadline is May 1st. This means you have until May 1st, 2024. You have until then to decide where you would like to attend. So take this time. You have quite a few months still. Continue to visit college campuses. Continue to look at virtual tours. Talk to reps, talk to friends, family, and make the best decision that you can for yourself and your family. So that decision deadline date, May 1st, that's when you will need to put an enrollment deposit down if you would like to attend a 4-year institution in the fall. And you can only deposit to one school. Okay, this is my contact info. We're running a little bit late tonight due to some technical difficulties. I'm going to ask that if you have any questions, please feel free to email them directly to me, or you can email them to your counselor. I'm happy to follow up with anyone that would like to send me a note, and any specific individual questions, please do so by emailing me as well. But thank you so much for all of you for being here tonight. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we had. I'm excited to partner with all of you. This is an exciting time. There's a lot of information. Don't get me wrong, I understand that, but we are here to support you, and go Carmel.